Today I want to take a look at the PowerShell commandlet get-service. This is a basic one that shows us the Windows services of the local host. It has several parameters and often frequently used for kind of system changes, disabling a server, maybe bringing a server back online. And we have a handful of examples 1 through 9 to take a look at. And here we can see the various switch parameters that are available on the commandlet, things about dependent services and required services. Dependent is essentially downstream, looking at others that depend on the current service, and required is upstream, things that this service needs for it to begin. And we have a few different other switches we can use. Well, we'll walk through the examples to learn more. So the first is GetService, which is a default display showing the status, service name, and display name of each service. Now that's important because a lot of services have a cryptic internal name and then a more user-friendly display name. For example, we have Windows Update, which is running. And we'll highlight that one here. And Windows Update, very easy display name, but WUAUSERV is the internal service name, kind of a more technical name, like WinRM. That's a very short, easy to type technical name, but that's the Windows Remote Management ... The name continues. So the display names are helpful for kind of purpose and context, but the technical internal name is what we'll need for managing things like start, stop, and state. GetService WMI star provides the WMI performance adapter for APIs and also WMI registration service. So we have a couple of matches on that one. That would be example 2, where we're providing some sort of a starting string and then a wildcard character to show anything that begins with a particular search string. Display services that include a search string. The same sort of idea, but here we're going to put 2 wildcards, one before, one after, and that way if it contains anywhere in the middle, we'll get results that are more flexible and a wider filter that's cast. So this is looking to the display name, whereas the first example was looking to the more technical internal name with a single wildcard. And here we have 2, so contains. And this provides all kinds of things. We've got Intel, Xbox Live, Windows Media Player. Anything that contained the word network somewhere in it is going to come back on the result set. Provides a more flexible filter and lets us learn more about what's available on our system. Example number 4 is looking for names WIN star, but excluding WinRM. So same sort of thing, again, with the matching and filtering, that the name begins with a prefix, but then we're excluding a particular item we don't want. If we run that example without the dash exclude, we're going to end up with one more item, the WinRM down here, because that was part of the exclude. And again, all of this is focused on the name column. Our next example, we'll take a look at GetService, where the status equals running. How many running services do we have? And just to expand on that example, if we do parentheses .count, we could execute a very simple way of taking a table of data and getting a total count on it, doing the parens and .count suffix, and there we have 116 running services. Kind of incredible, really. I mean, how much the modern Windows OS executes concurrently. There's a lot to think about. Most software products are going to bring a background Windows service. So going back to our documentation, we'll come down. This was example 5, items that are running. And if we come to 6, list the services on a computer that have dependent services. So this is anything where it's going to have a dependent property that is not null. So somebody is depending on this service to execute, meaning that it's a higher value item to have active and running. So we want to take that data. We can go ahead and highlight here. These are all the ones that have dependent services. And if we take the output and run the full example, we can format as a list to learn what are those dependencies. So here we have dependent services.count, number of dependent services, format list, property name, dependent services. So here we are getting the number of, in 3, yes, and then an enumeration of what those 3 are, And then the first item returned is the parent. So this is kind of a parent-child representation of how the Windows services have dependencies within each other. You might need this for troubleshooting if something's not stopping or starting in a group. You have multiple services, they have dependencies within each other. You want to examine that more closely. Get service S star, sort by status. So same thing, we're going to do name with a prefix, and then we're sorting to see which ones are running. And that might give us a little bit better clue about what's started and what is stopped. So this is a way to kind of trace things that you may need to change from, disabled into automatic, or maybe from manual to automatic. There are times where you're going to want more services starting, and maybe during patching, update, reboots, something doesn't come back online the way you expect. This can help you to explore that. Coming into example number 8, we want to look at the required services parameter and learn more about the result type coming there. If we clear out the console, we can get service WinRM, required services, and this will tell us about the inputs that it needs. So for WinRM to turn on, it's going to require all 3 of these services to be running. In our case, all 3 are running. And if I run the same thing without required services, I learn that WinRM on this particular machine is stopped. So it can turn on, it has the 3 required services, but it is not yet started. And that's something that's intentional for security. We may want to manually start it when we need it for remote management. But in a case of something like a laptop, you may leave that off. In a server, you typically have it on. But this lets us confirm that the dependencies are available if we did want to start it. And then finally, with example 9, get a service through the pipeline operator. So this is really showing that the help for GetService supports bringing in the name over the pipeline, and that we can take a simple string, pipe it into GetService, and provide that as the name. We don't have to do it as a dash name switch. We can use the pipeline operator as a way to push the string into the commandlet, and it will come back and return those specific items. So that shows the basics of the get service command. I would add that there are other service commands available. We have beyond get service. We can, of course, start, stop, suspend, resume, restart, and those are things we'll take a look at in future videos. Thanks for watching.